My name is Amelia. I am 36 years old, and I work as a curator at a private gallery in Seattle that focuses on contemporary art. I have never been someone overly concerned with appearance, but my profession demands a certain presentation. Neutral-toned midi dresses, hair pulled back neatly, a thin line of eyeliner to frame my eyes. People often tell me my eyes make them feel safe, that I look like someone they can confide in. Lately, though, I find it difficult to even trust my own reflection. I live with my husband Daniel, who works in real estate development, and our 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Our home sits in the northern part of the city, tucked into a quiet neighborhood, edged with tall pine trees and a still lake that mirrors the sky at dusk. The house itself is 2 stories, rebuilt from an 80-year-old structure with a sloped European-style roof and narrow windows that let in pale morning light. When we first moved in, Daniel laughed and said, "If there are ghosts here, I'll make friends with them." These days, I'm the one who feels like I'm sharing the house with something unseen, something that does not wish me well. 3 months ago, my mother died suddenly while on vacation in Arizona. A heart attack. No warning, no time to prepare. She left behind a carefully arranged will, already filed with the family lawyer. I inherited nearly $2.5 million, mostly tied up in stocks and property investments. I haven't touched a single cent, not because I don't need it, but because something about it all feels wrong, unsettled. Since the funeral, Daniel has changed, not in an obvious way. He is not cold or cruel, just busier, constant meetings, calls that stretch past midnight, low conversations in his study that stop the moment I walk by. Whenever I question him, he smiles lightly and brushes it away. "You're imagining things. I'm just trying to protect our future." I try to believe him, but a quiet fear coils deep inside me. Lily has always had a vivid imagination. With her soft curls and amber eyes, she used to invent stories from cracks in the ceiling, or turn drifting clouds into creatures from secret lands. But recently she has grown quieter. She spends long stretches sitting by the living room window, staring out at the yard with an expression I cannot decipher. One morning, while pouring her orange juice, I asked gently, "What are you looking at, Lily?" She didn't turn around. "Don't you see the shadows between the trees?" she said. "They're whispering to each other." My hand tightened around the glass. "That's just your imagination, sweetheart." She slowly turned her head toward me, her gaze calm, almost unsettling. "It's not imagination. They're talking about you." Before I could ask more, Daniel came down the stairs, adjusting his cufflinks, smiling as if nothing in the world were wrong. "I need to leave early. Meeting with investors from Japan. If everything goes well, maybe we'll plan a big trip. Lily, what should Daddy bring you from Tokyo?" She didn't answer. I forced a smile and walked him to the door, watching his Range Rover disappear down the gravel drive. A sharp gust of wind made me pull my coat tighter. The sun was shining, yet I felt watched. Not from far away, from somewhere close. Perhaps even from within the house itself. Everything seemed to unravel after my mother's death, and an irrational fear began whispering that I might be next. 3 days after Daniel left for Tokyo, Lily barely left her spot by the window. She drew constantly, but not the bright castles and gardens she once loved. Now every page showed our house encircled by thick black spirals, faceless figures behind the windows. "Who are they waiting for?" I asked. She answered without hesitation. "They're waiting for you to wake up." Her tone was steady, too steady for a child her age. That night, I flipped through her sketchbook and found a torn page. The next drawing showed our home splattered in red, and in the center was a long-haired woman lying still. I tried convincing myself grief was distorting my thoughts. Then, one Wednesday afternoon, while cleaning the storage room, I found an old leather notebook hidden beneath a loose floorboard. There was no name on it. Inside were technical drawings of the house's original structure. They showed a narrow underground passage leading from behind the kitchen to a hidden room beneath the foundation. The tunnel had never appeared in the inspection report. When I brought the notebook upstairs, Lily glanced at it casually. "I've seen that," she said. "Seen what?" "The tunnel. In my dreams. A voice told me to show you." "What voice?" "Grandma's." My hands nearly dropped the notebook. That evening, Lily dragged a chair to the table and whispered, "You shouldn't stay home alone at night." "Lily, stop. That's not funny." She looked at me seriously. "I heard Daddy talking. He said if you disappeared, everything would be easier." My blood ran cold. "Where did you hear that?" "In his office. I was sitting by the door. He didn't know." That night, I entered Daniel's office quietly. The computer was logged out. Drawers were locked. In the trash, I found printed documents, including a diagram of our security system, labeled Full Lockdown Mode, and a house blueprint, with a note underlined, "Ensure there are no uncontrolled exit points." My vision blurred. A text came in from Daniel, "Staying longer. Big opportunity. Don't call." Minutes later, a bank officer phoned to confirm a request to close my mother's savings account. The signature on file was mine. I had never authorized it. When I entered the bedroom, Lily sat hugging her stuffed bunny. "It's starting," she whispered. "I see them in the garden." A black SUV was parked near the house. No one stepped out, but I felt their presence. Sleep never came that night. At dawn, I searched Daniel's office again, more carefully this time. Hidden in a file box was a life insurance policy in my name for $2 million, dated 1 week after my mother's funeral. Daniel was the sole beneficiary. The signature resembled mine, but was stiff, unnatural. A note inside read, "Complete before the 30th. Ensure nothing is traceable, especially by her." I took Lily to our neighbor Susan's house, claiming she had a fever. Back home, I called the insurance company pretending to verify details. The policy was active, covering disappearance or unexplained death. Daniel had a contingency plan. Charlotte, Daniel's mother, called soon after. Her voice was smooth, controlled. "You wouldn't want Lily to grow up without a father, would you?" I ended the call shaking. They were building a trap. In the basement, following the red markings on the old blueprint, I found a brick wall patched with newer mortar. It sounded hollow when I knocked. Before I could investigate further, the front door opened. Daniel's voice echoed through the house, calm and measured. "Amelia, where are you? We need to talk." I hid in the shadows as my phone vibrated with a message from Susan, asking if everything was all right. I told her to keep Lily safe. Moments later, the basement light went out. I switched on my flashlight just as I heard mechanical sounds. Not from the stairs, but from the windows. I ran upstairs, but the basement door slammed and locked from outside. The kitchen door was sealed. Metal bars slid into place over the windows. The security diagram had been real. There was a faint scent of gasoline in the air. I searched frantically for the landline. Dead. Of course, it wouldn't open. I rushed to the living room, pulled out the house plan I had hidden. The underground path marked P4. It was the only way out. I sprinted to the kitchen, yanked open the pantry, ran my fingers along the paneling until I found a narrow seam. Pressed. Click, click. A section of the wall slid aside, revealing a dusty, low wooden door. I opened it. Inside was a tight tunnel, just enough for one person to crawl through. My heart was pounding wildly, but I had no choice. I grabbed the flashlight and crawled in. The air was thick, musty with the smell of rotting wood. I moved slowly, guided by the dim light. Every sound behind me sent chills down my spine. I didn't know if Daniel had noticed I was gone, but I knew the house wouldn't be safe much longer. After what felt like forever, I saw a faint light ahead. I pushed through the rotted wooden door. It opened with a loud crack. I was behind the garage, next to a stone wall covered in ivy. An open space, no cameras, no barriers. I didn't hesitate. I ran like mad down the narrow back path towards Susan's house. Pounded on the door, desperate. She opened it, her face pale when she saw me, covered in dirt, face ghost white. Oh my God, what? No questions. Call the police right now. Lily ran out and hugged me tight. Mom! I held her close, trembling, and whispered into her ear. We're never going back there. Do you understand? Never. Susan called the police. I handed them everything. Insurance evidence, security system, Prince Daniel's files, the audio recording I captured days earlier. Meanwhile, from Susan's window, I watched my house catch fire. Flames roared from the basement, then spread across the ground floor. The smell of burning plastic reached even her living room. Lily buried her face in my shoulder, whispering, I saw it in my dream, Mom, but this time we got away. I couldn't look away from the blaze, consuming every memory. For the first time in months, I felt alive. But I also realized my so-called husband was willing to do whatever it took to make me disappear into the ashes. I sat on Susan's couch wrapped in a blanket, arms still around Lily. My mind was a storm of shock, rage, and disbelief. The flames outside still reflected through the window. Fire had swallowed everything, our home, our memories, and the lies that had lasted too long. The police arrived just minutes after Susan called. A female officer named Harper entered. Professional but not cold. Miss Amelia Jameson, yes. We received calls from neighbors and the fire department. Your house is gone. But there's evidence this wasn't an accident. Can you start from the beginning? I gave them everything I had. The fake life insurance policy, photos of the altered security system, copies of the notes I found in Daniel's office, and a recording on my phone. Daniel's voice, telling someone to make sure nothing is traceable. The officer flipped through each document, her expression shifting from doubt to growing alarm. You said you were locked inside. Who has access to the security system? Daniel Jameson, my husband. He said he was on a business trip to Tokyo, but I'm sure that was just a cover. Harper nodded. We'll review all financial transactions, traffic cams, and check for any exit records. But to be thorough, I'll need to talk to Lily. Do you consent? I looked at my daughter. Lily sat quietly beside me, not crying, not afraid. Her gaze stopped me cold. You ready, sweetheart? She nodded softly, then walked over to the small table to sit across from Officer Harper. Harper asked gently, Did you hear anything strange from your father or notice anything unusual around the house? Daddy was on the phone, Lily whispered. I was eavesdropping behind the door. He said if Mommy disappeared, everything would be his. Then he said, just make it look like an accident. Harper stopped writing and looked up at me. She's very clear. Was anyone else involved? Lily nodded. Grandma Charlotte? She called Daddy too. I saw him smiling when he talked to her. Harper let out a breath. We'll issue a summons for her investigation. That afternoon, police executed a search warrant at my mother-in-law's house, Charlotte Jameson's, located just over 15 minutes from mine. There, they found a file of investment plans under my name, forged power of attorney documents, and over $80,000 in cash hidden inside a safe. At the same time, Daniel was located at a gas station near the Oregon border, driving a silver SUV, Not a company vehicle, but a rental car with fake registration. In the trunk were stacks of crisp cash, a fake passport under the name Andrew Simmons, and a printed route plan to Canada. When arrested, he said only one thing: I was forced. This was all my mother's idea. Charlotte was arrested that same night. She refused to answer questions and only repeated coldly, I did everything for Daniel. He's the one who was misled. I wasn't surprised. Daniel had always done whatever his mother told him, but he wasn't innocent. Together, they had built an elaborate plan to make me the next unfortunate accident, all to get their hands on my mother's inheritance and start a new life without me. What chilled me the most was how prepared they had been. House blueprints, the insurance policy, the altered security system, the destruction of evidence. Every step had been calculated. If it hadn't been for Lily, I might have been nothing more than a name on the morning news. After signing off on the case files, Lily and I were taken to a safe witness hotel, a small room with a window overlooking a quiet lake. For the first time in weeks, I didn't hear metal doors locking or quiet footsteps behind me. Lily lay beside me, still clutching her stuffed bunny. Mommy, she whispered, do you think they'll come back? I kissed her forehead. No, they can't hurt us anymore. The police are here. Everything will come to light. Outside the window, the sun was setting, but inside me, another kind of sun had just risen, one of hope, of justice, and of a new beginning. I was no longer a woman who trusted blindly. I was a mother who had learned to fight for truth and for her daughter. The trial of Daniel Jameson and Charlotte Jameson began Monday morning in the largest courtroom of King County Courthouse, Washington State. The gallery was packed with reporters, curious residents, and former colleagues of Daniel from the real estate industry. But no one stood up to defend him. His reputation, the perfect husband, a refined businessman, crumbled during the very first hearing. I sat in the witness box, gripping my mother's old bracelet, heart heavy. Lily sat beside me, her hair neatly braided, her expression as serious as an adult's. She wasn't scared, just silently waiting for the truth to be told. The prosecutor began with evidence that was clear and indisputable. The life insurance policy under my name, signed just after my mother's passing. The tampered security system that locked all exits from the outside. Photos of Daniel withdrawing cash and renting a car with fake documents under the name Andrew Simmons. Testimonies from me, Susan, the neighbor, and especially Lily. When Lily took the stand, the entire courtroom fell into a chilling silence. Do you remember what your dad said? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Lily answered firmly. I heard Daddy say, as long as it looks like an accident, no one will suspect anything. Then everything will be mine. Are you sure? Lily nodded. I was standing right behind the door. He didn't know I was there. Across the room, Daniel lowered his head, unable to look at his daughter. The defense tried to spin a different story, that Daniel was financially overwhelmed, that Charlotte coerced him into the plan, that he had suffered emotionally after his mother-in-law's death. But they had nothing to counter my mother's journal, found after the fire, hidden in an old drawer in her storage shed. In one entry she had written, Daniel keeps urging me to invest in his business, but when I ask for financial statements, he dodges. I suspect something's wrong. I'm worried about Amelia. He's too confident. That journal entry was the final blow. The prosecutor closed with a powerful statement to the jury. Daniel Jameson didn't just attempt to end his wife's life. He was prepared to turn his 6-year-old daughter into an unknowing witness. This plan was supported by his own mother, Charlotte Jameson, who was willing to sacrifice anyone to give her son a fresh start built on another family's fortune. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict. Daniel Jameson, 15 years in prison for attempted arson, conspiracy to harm a family member, and use of forged documents. Charlotte Jameson, 8 years in prison for conspiracy and falsifying financial records. When the sentence was read, Daniel said nothing. He only lowered his head. But for the first time during the entire trial, Charlotte screamed, "This is all your fault. If you'd done it right, I wouldn't be sitting here." Daniel turned to her, his voice ice cold. "You didn't force me to sign the policy. You didn't lock the doors. That was my hand." The man who once held my daughter so gently now sat slumped in a gray prison jumpsuit, eyes empty. The toxic bond between mother and son, twisted by control and delusion, finally broke on the very stage they had created together. As we stepped out of the courthouse, reporters swarmed with cameras. One asked me, "Amelia, how does it feel to see justice served?" I squeezed Lily's hand and answered slowly, "Justice doesn't erase the wounds, but it stops them from spreading. I know that starting today, my daughter can finally sleep in peace." Lily looked up at me and whispered softly, "Mom, I dreamed about Grandma." She was smiling. She said, "Good job, Lily." I bent down and hugged her tightly. Even though I lost everything, my home, my trust, and the people I once called family, I held on to the one thing that mattered most, the bond between a mother and daughter, and survival, not just in body, but in spirit. And that to me was the greatest victory of all. 3 months after the trial, Lily and I moved into a small house in Edgewater, a quiet lakeside town south of Seattle. No more automatic gates, no complex security systems, no towering walls, just a simple white fence, a front yard full of lavender, and a wooden balcony overlooking the clear blue water. We didn't need much, just the feeling of being safe and a place to breathe without looking over our shoulders. Lily quickly fell in love with her new school. She made friends with a small group of kids who also loved to draw, and grew especially close to her art teacher, Miss Diana. Every evening, Lily brought home a new drawing. Sometimes a wooden bridge over the lake, other times a portrait of me reading beneath a maple tree. "She has a truly special inner world," Miss Diana said during our first parent-teacher conference, "and a rare gift for visual expression at this age." I nodded, not surprised. Lily had seen and survived things no child ever should. Art had become her own language, the way she healed wounds too deep for words. As for me, I returned to work at Gallimore Gallery, the place where I had been a curator before stepping away to care for my mother. At first, I worried I wouldn't be able to focus, but instead, every time I stood before a piece of art, I felt calmer, more grounded in myself. Outside work hours, I began planning a long-dreamed project, a foundation to support young female artists, funded in part by the inheritance my mother left me. I called it the Ravieri Foundation, based on the idea of a Ravieri dream, a voice for those who had once been silent, overlooked, or broken. We would host exhibitions, workshops, and provide scholarships for female art students, especially those who had experienced trauma, loss, or abuse. I wanted to create a space where women weren't just seen, but truly heard. At our first planning meeting for the launch exhibit, I ran into Ethan Torres again, an architect I had worked with the previous year on the restoration of a historic gallery. He was quiet, had a deep sense of aesthetics, and a rare ability to truly listen. "Melia." Ethan smiled gently when he saw me fumbling with a stack of layouts. "If you're trying to rebuild faith in the world, don't start by trying to raise every beam on your own." I laughed for the first time in days. Maybe he didn't know his words had touched something soft inside me, a place long shattered, but still unwilling to give up hope. That evening, while Lily was drawing on the living room floor, I sat beside her, flipping through the Reverie Foundation materials. "What are you drawing?" I asked. "You, me, and Grandma," Lily answered, eyes still on the page. "We're standing in a museum full of paintings. I'm the one who drew them, you're the one who hung them, and Grandma, she's the one shining the light." My throat tightened. She had no idea what those words meant. Or maybe she did, more than I ever realized. A cool breeze drifted in from the open window, carrying the scent of lavender from the garden. I looked at Lily, then up at the creamy white ceiling of our new home. And, for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the night. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew one thing. From now on, I would write this life myself. No more secrets, no more control, and no one else deciding my worth. I am Amelia Jameson, and I survived. Not to hide, but to rise. On Christmas afternoon, snow began to fall softly outside the window. Flakes landed gently on the wooden roof, dusting the balcony in a thin white layer. In the small kitchen of our lakeside home, the scent of cinnamon and melting butter from a freshly baked apple pie filled the air, blending with the soft jazz playing from the quarter speaker. I was setting the table when Lily ran in from the living room, holding a small gift box wrapped in handmade green paper. "Mom, I made this for you." I sat down, took the box from her little hands, and gently untied the ribbon. Inside was a small wooden frame holding a drawing Lily had made. 3 people sitting by a fireplace, me, Lily, and a tall man with soft, curly, dark hair. I recognized Ethan immediately. "What were you thinking about when you drew this?" I asked, meeting her serious gaze. "I was thinking, this is family," Lily said slowly. "I know it's just us, but when Mr. Ethan's here, it doesn't feel empty. It feels warm." I stayed quiet. Outside, the wind brushed snowflakes against the glass. Lily's words echoed inside me like an answer to a question I'd never spoken aloud. "What is family, Mom?" she asked again, her voice softer. "Dad used to say it's about blood, but I don't think that's right." I lowered my eyes and placed the frame on the table. "Family," I began, "is where there's care, protection, and unconditional love. Not everyone with the same blood deserves that role. Family is the person who makes you feel safe, lets you be yourself, and never makes you afraid to ask for a hug." Lily nodded and smiled. "Then we already have a complete family." I raised an eyebrow, teasing. "What do you mean?" "I think if it's okay with you, Mr. Ethan could be part of our family. I'm not saying you have to marry him or anything, but if he were here every night, I'd be really happy." I laughed. "What if I told you I've been thinking the same thing?" Her eyes widened. "Really?" Just then there was a knock at the door. Ethan stood outside holding a bouquet of white roses and a large paper bag. He wore a thick wool coat, a gray scarf wrapped around his neck, and his eyes lit up when he saw me. "You didn't forget about tonight, did you?" he asked. "I brought chocolate cake from your favorite place." I let him in. Lily ran over and hugged Ethan like it was the most natural thing in the world. We had dinner by candlelight beside a small tree that Lily had decorated with paper ornaments she made herself. Afterward, Ethan told a story about being forced to sing in a reindeer costume as a kid at a Christmas pageant. Lily laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair, and I cried from pure joy. When the clock struck 9, I tucked Lily into bed. Before falling asleep, she turned to me and asked, "Mom, will we still be here next year? We won't have to move again, right?" I stroked her hair and whispered, "No, this is our home, Lily. Our real home, and no one can make us leave. No one can take this place away from us anymore." I squeezed her hand. "No one can take this place away from us anymore." Lily closed her eyes, a peaceful smile spreading across her face. I turned off the light and quietly stepped out of the room. Downstairs, I found Ethan by the fireplace, holding a mug of hot cocoa. He turned and looked at me, his eyes softer than any words. I never thought I'd find a place like this, he whispered. But maybe family isn't something you're born into. Maybe it's something you choose. I nodded and held on to. I walked over and leaned into him. The firelight flickered against the wall like a heartbeat. Snow continued to fall outside, but inside that little house there was warmth, peace, and a quiet promise. We had survived the darkest days to find each other right as the light returned. A new beginning, not perfect, but truly ours. Milia's story isn't just about escaping a dark plot. It's a powerful reminder that family isn't always safe unless there's love and respect. Her clarity, courage, and devotion as a mother carried her through the shadows to rebuild her life. In a world full of uncertainty, what matters isn't where you came from, but where you choose to belong. A place with real love, understanding, and unconditional grace. What do you think about Amelia's journey and the choice she made in the end? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family, truth, and the courage to begin.